Today is October the 4th, 2019. My name is Tanya Finchum, and along with me is Ben Pollard. I'm with Oklahoma State University, and Ben is a retiree of the Natural Resource Conservation Service, right?
No, that's
And
not,
we
that's
are
not
in-
correct, Tanya. I'm from the Oklahoma Conservation Commission.
Okay, correction then.
Let's start over.
Are you serious?
But I am from the Conservation Commission.
Yes.
That's right, I should know that. So did I introduce you? Well, never mind. Okay, well. Ben Pollard with the Oklahoma Conservation Commission. We're in Chelsea, Oklahoma to speak with George Fraley regarding his work in conservation. He's been the chairman of the Rogers County Conservation District for quite some time.
I can't remember how long. I've been on the board this January the 1st to be 45 years.
That's a long time, yes. And this project is called the Oklahoma's Conservation Heritage World History Project, and it's been sponsored by the Oklahoma Conservation Historical Society, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and the Oklahoma World History Research Program at OSU. So thank you for talking with us today.
You're welcome.
Let's begin with learning when and where you were born.
I was born here in Chelsea, Oklahoma, and one of the few people that was born in a hospital because we don't have any more anymore. And on October the 19th, 1941.
Well, happy early birthday.
Yes, it is.
Getting close.
I'm going to a Razorback football game that day.
And what did you tell us a little bit about your parents?
My parents came to Chelsea, I'm thinking around 1921 or 22, to help my grandfather in building cotton gins, of which they ended up building 5 of them. It was called the Chelsea Gin Company, and they were located, 4 of them were located in other towns. And as I was telling Ben earlier, I got a copy of the financial statement of the Chelsea Gin Company in 1925, and their gross receipts was $986,000. So there was a lot of cotton grown around Chelsea, Oklahoma, and the surrounding towns, but the Depression came along and things changed, and eventually they shut everything down in 1942, 43. Meantime, my father had ended up getting a hold of an insurance office in 1933, and this insurance office is still going back in 2019. So,
And it's called what?
Fraley Insurance Agency.
Okay, get a plug in there.
Okay.
And what about your mom?
My mother was a housewife and just took very good care of me over the years. I had 2 brothers and a sister. I was the youngest by far. They were like 16, 12, and 10 years old when I was born. So I'm the only one left, except I do have one sister-in-law left. And so my dad passed away in 1977, and I think my mother was 1989.
Can I say something?
Yes?
Pop died in 78.
Okay, he was 77, but he died in 78. Yes, that's okay. And anyway, they stayed right here, and they're buried here in Chelsea.
So you grew up on a farm?
No, I grew up right here in town. In fact, the house that I grew up in, my daughter lives in now, which she had her second grandchild yesterday, so I've got my second great-grandkid as of yesterday.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where did you go to elementary school?
Everything I went to right here in Chelsea, America.
Okay.
And I graduated in 1959, and after that I attended Northeastern Oklahoma A&M Junior College in Miami, Oklahoma, where I thought I had to play football. I went out for 2 years, and I got to play once in a while, but not every day. And after that, I transferred to the University of Arkansas, and I gave up football over there altogether. I didn't even think about it. But anyway, I graduated in June the 1st, 1963, and my parents and some of my brothers and sisters were there, and my dad gave me $5, and he said, "Here, you can go out to eat." But he said, "I'll see you to work Monday morning at 8 o'clock." So I had one day of relief after graduation before I went to work. So since that June the 3rd, 1963, I've been in here every day.
In this particular office, or did you have to work your way up to this one?
Actually, I started working in my sophomore year in high school, working three summer months. But after I graduated from college, we were in a little 2-room building, and it got too small, so we bought this building here. And then I think it was 86 or 7, somewhere, I added this part over into it. So
What had been your major at University of Arkansas?
I graduated with a business, insurance and real estate,
Okay.
and business administration.
So you knew at that time you were going to be coming back.
Pretty well, since I'd already worked 6 years in here in the summer months. It was pretty well. And my 2 brothers, they had no interest in it whatsoever. So
Well, what got you interested in the conservation stream of things?
the year I was born, they started the Rogers County Conservation District, of which my dad was a charter member of it. And in 1974, he told me, he said, I've done it long enough. He had 34 years in, and he said, I've done it long enough, so I think I'm going to retire, effective January the 1st, 1975. So I said, okay, that's fine. You need to slow down a little bit. So anyway, some of the other board members asked him, said, do you think your son would be interested? Which, truthfully, I didn't know much about it, other than I knew what he did and heard some of him talking about, but as far as ever participating, didn't. So they did, and they asked me if I would, and I said yes. So that's where I got started on the Rogers County Conservation Board, January the 1st, 1975.
Do you remember what some of the issues were at that time?
Probably the 2 main things here was the Watershed program, of which my dad and 2 other gentlemen, one from Mays County, well, the other 2 were both from Mays County, were on what they call the Pryor Creek Watershed District. And so he was pretty involved in this. And we ended up, I think 3 of them were probably built before I even got on the board. So he was involved there, and just at that time, they actually rented a lot of equipment for sprigging Bermuda grass, and which eventually we called Rogers County all soldered in Bermuda grass. So there's not much. We still have some of the equipment, but it's not used very often anymore. So, but there wasn't a lot of great issues at that time, I don't think. As time went along, I began to see a lot of them, such as the abandoned mine land program, which Ben is very familiar with, which Rogers County has, I think it's 49.3 or 6% of the abandoned mines are right in this one county, the whole state. I think that's about correct. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the issues that I rather got involved in time, and went a lot of places with Ben and Mike Castle on the abandoned mine land program. And then I got involved in the rural abandoned program, which is another program, which I was involved in for several years until the federal government got rid of the rural abandoned mine program and just put everything under the abandoned mine land program. So during that time, I was president of the Rural Abandoned Mine Coalition for 2 years. Then I was their secretary till the time it was abandoned. And between that and the Oklahoma Association of Conservation Districts, I figured I probably went to Washington, D.C. somewhere around 20, 25 times. I can't remember exactly, but it was sometimes going twice a year. And it was a very eye-opening adventure, I will say that. And Ben's been up there several times at the same time I was up there. And to see how things operate up there, it gives you a little bit different outlook on what really goes up there. It's much more involved than just what you read in the paper. It was interesting to know what you went, and I know there was one trip I went up there, and my son Matt went along with me, and we met with the director of the Rural Abandoned Mine program, and we ended up. I got appointments for, I think it was 27 senators and representatives, and we did it all in one day, and it was not easy. We started at 2:30 in the morning because we were staying somewhere up in Maryland. It's not an easy drive. I never saw so many lanes in my life driving into Washington, D.C. And it was interesting, and fortunately, we kept getting lost in the Capitol because you go down in the basement to get to the House and the Senate. And I got so turned around, and this gentleman for Ramp, Bobby Rakestraw, he got turned around over there too. But Matt always got it figured out for us where to go. So it was good that he went with us. And I think it was very educational to him to see what all goes on up there. But probably one of the most frustrating things in my life was trying to get an appointment with some senator from Utah. And I called up there to get this and talk to this gentleman. And he asked me, he said, well, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Oklahoma. We don't accept any invitations except people from Utah. And I said, who in the hell do you think pays your taxes? He didn't say anything. So, but I didn't get an invitation to meet with him. So, but that was just a part of the thing. But most of them they were good. I got so tired of hearing the same thing. We'll see what we can do for you. And you walk out of there and you know just as soon as you did, they say, this guy's a joke. It wasn't going to happen. Although I do remember we went into, I can't remember, it was a senator from Ohio. Went in and got some time with him, and he said, I'm going to be very blunt with you. He said, the Indians are hollering a whole lot louder than you all are, so we're going to take care of them. You're going to do without. And I said, well, thank you. I appreciate your being honest with me because I get tired of this. We'll see what we can do when they're not going to do nothing. So I really appreciated that for somebody to finally be honest with us. And I know Ben probably have heard that same thing. So, but it was good. I did usually go a day earlier, a day later, going to D.C. and went down the mall and looked at museums till I was wore out. But it was very interesting, but I enjoyed all of it.
Would they listen to someone from the small town of Chelsea, Oklahoma?
Most of them didn't even know where Chelsea, Oklahoma was.
That's what.
And what was the guy's name from Muskogee, Ben?
Representative Mike Sinar.
Yes. Yeah. I'd go in there and he said, you know, even though you're registered in the wrong party, said, I'll still help you. And he thought I was registered as a Democrat, as a Republican, but I wasn't. I was registered as a Democrat, but that was Mike. And who was the guy from Pawhuska? that goes up there, and when I go to Mike Siner's office, he said, I'm going to sit out here in the rose bed. You all go in there. And
Oh,
you know who I'm talking
I
about.
think so.
I
Yeah.
can't think of his name, but it was all interesting. I learned a lot of things up there. And basically, I thought it was, it was helpful. They do listen to you, but they're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. But
Well, what was your purpose in going? Were you asking for anything in particular?
we were trying to get more money from the Rural Abandoned Mine Program. Ben's awful familiar with the AML and the RAMP program both. There's a tax of 35 cents a ton of every ton of coal that is mined in the United States. And this money goes into, I'll call it the pot, but it's like the Social Security pot. The legislature has to appropriate the money out of that pot in order to get it be done. And it would come in around 345 million to 360 million, but they would appropriate about 280 million. So it's like the Social Security deal. It kept building up and up and up. And I think the airport tax is the same way. But the last I ever knew of, there was something, which it's just a figure, there was over $4 billion in that account. And it'll never be appropriated. Now, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they actually went in off budget. They got the law changed to go off budget, so whatever they collect goes into the Abandoned Mine Land Fund. So, and Oklahoma gets, well, it's supposed to be $3 million, but they do take a little change out of there for the what they call, I forgot the terminology, but it has to do with the budgeting system. They have to take a little dab out of it, which I don't know. But Oklahoma gets about $3 million a year less what they take out, and we could use $10 million a year to take care of everything because it's expensive. It ends up costing about $5,000 to $6,000 an acre to reclaim these strip pits. But I know that.
Yeah, you might speak to the issue of the local issue in Rogers County, the number of hazards and how the board's been involved and how you got tied into the whole program.
Well, one of the where it really was getting to me was we had one of our football coaches, a good friend of mine now. He's retired. Had a son that he and some other boys went out here to an old coal pit, and they dove in, and he dove in and hit a rock, and he was paralyzed. And he lived probably, 20 years, Wilma, 25 years, something like that, and passed away. He was still a young man, but it was bad. But we had, I think we ended up having 16 fatalities in this county, and the vast majority of them were youth. So that became a big, strong challenge to me. Let's get these things fixed. And we're still a long ways from having them fixed, but they are doing a lot of the fixing alongside bus routes. A county road here, and you got a strip pit right here, which if they run off the road, what's going to happen to the kids? They're going to probably all drown. But even though some of them, they built some safety guards around them, but what they've done is, at least on those kind, they've done part of the strip pit to make it where it's a safety situation. But it's been a challenge of mine, and because what's happened and seeing these kids. So there was one kid that drowned. I think he was 8 or 9 years old, and a year later, a brother of his drowned in the same pit at his grandfather's pond or strip pit there. And, I think about my own self. I took swimming lessons, didn't do very good, but I finally started swimming in the coal pits. And you either learn to swim or you drown, because you step into the water and you go about 4 feet and you're in 60 or 70 feet of water. So you don't have much chance, but I learned to swim in these coal pits around here. And they were cool enough in the summertime, it felt pretty good. So.
About how many are there in the, roughly how many are there in the county?
I'm guessing probably 60, 70, somewhere around in there.
And to fix them, you filled them in?
Yes.
Fill them in.
And then they revegetate it and everything. So, some of the places it's actually turned out real nice and be a nice piece of property. Whereas before they just had a long strip of water there. And now my dad liked to go fishing in them because there's some good fish in them. But it's just one of those things that it was a bad deal for many years, and I'm just glad a lot of it's changing now. We've had a couple of sites where it actually took 2 years to get them done because they were so large. Because you can only spend so much money, and you have to have an engineering staff that works the design of it and everything else, because some of these places, they get, what do you call them,
The high walls?
high walls, and they're just dangerous. I've run into some of them right out west of here town. You walk up there at the edge, and if you don't know where you're walking, particularly if it's nighttime, you're going to be down in a pit long. It's going to be 40 feet down to the water.
Well, has mining stopped in the area?
No.
It's still going on?
But they're taking some land. I happen to know this Phoenix Coal Company out here, about 12, 14 miles from here. They have to, as they dig the coal, they have to take all the topsoil off, and they have to put them in a certain place. And they've got to even vegetate it while they're mining. And then when they get through, they fill everything back up, and then they bring the topsoil and put it on top. But there's some of it up north here that you couldn't hardly run a dog through there. The trees are so thick. And when they end up, it's beautiful pasture land. Really nice. And that's been interesting. I think Ben knows about it, but several years ago, I can't even remember their names. Crawford was one of them. Who was the other one? That was on the Oklahoma Mining Commission. This would have been in 1999, and they asked me if I would serve on the Mining Commission because they wanted somebody. Well, they've got different things for each position on there. One of them is conservation and agriculture together. So I was kind of picked to go on there. So I just re-upped for my fourth term on there, which they're 7-year terms. So I just finished. January the 1st will be my 21st year on the Mining Commission. So,
and that's a volunteer.
Again, volunteer. And I finally surpassed Leonard Solomon as chairman. He was set the record as chairman for 7 years. I'm on my 13th year now. So I guess nobody else wants the job, so they keep getting me on there. But that has been a further education to me to watch how a lot of the mining goes. And there's so much mining in Oklahoma that I had no idea. We're the largest gypsum producing state in the United States. which that's what they make sheetrock out of.
I was going to say, I'm not sure what that's used for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of our mining commissioners, Ben, is this mining sandstone,
Wow.
That's pretty.
and he's got 2 pits, which is hard as granite.
Man.
And
That's pretty. I mean, it's
just
pretty
really
against-
beautiful stuff. And people are using it for countertops,
Mhm.
floors, and all kind of things. And have you heard of the gathering place in Tulsa?
I have.
He hauled over 170 semi-loads of sandstone to that place.
Wow.
Even the curbs down there are made out of sandstone.
And where in the state? Where is he?
It's in Tulsa. Oh, he's over around Poto.
Okay.
He's got 12 pits over there.
Hmm.
And has gone from rags to riches in mining sandstone. Unbelievable. Nice guy.
Well,
But,
does he have conservation practices in place to?
oh, yes.
Is he?
Yes, you have to when you're mining. I mean, you have to have permits and all this stuff, which is what I find being on the mining commission. You have to have permits to dig coal. You have to have permits to dig sand, gravel, whatever. You have to have permits to do that. And of course, when you do that, they have inspectors that go out to see that you're doing everything right and everything's healthy wise. So it's been another part of the conservation that has really got to me, and then I enjoy so much seeing this.
It's quite a bit of difference from insurance business to.
Yeah, that's what my
mining.
wife thinks.
And in high school, did you study like geography or chemistry or something that would help with this? No,
Not really.
you just had. To
I mean,
learn it on-
I took all the science I could take for just because my dad always made sure that I didn't take any loafing classes. I didn't get to take home ec or FFA or he made me. He looked at my enrollment card every day and every year in high school to make sure, and he was kind of disappointed. I ended up with a study hall my senior year, but I couldn't get anything else. So, but I made it through.
So all these various committees and boards that you were on took you away from town a lot.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
But now Wilma did get to go several trips. Well, she's been to almost all the trips to the NACD, which is the National Association of Conservation Districts, which is the national group. And she's been to most all of the conventions that we had and a lot of the RAMP and AML programs. And usually when we did that, we might go a couple of days earlier or stay a couple of days afterwards and do some touring of the United States. Because I think we figured out one time that other than the very northeast part of the United States, we have been to every state except Montana, I think it is. Because one time we had a real abandoned mine program in Ohio. Afterwards, we went to Niagara Falls and went across Canada and back through the United States.
So, George, one of the projects that I think would be useful to talk about is the Conservation Education Reserve that Rogers County has been involved with for some years now. That's kind of a...
That's one of my pride and joys.
Yeah.
It really is. We had a district conservation named Arnold Hamilton, who he and I got along real well. And I said, one of the things that I really see, Arnold, that we need to do, we've got to educate the younger people about conservation, because right now you're talking about the farmer being less than 2% of the population. And as the time goes along, it's going to be probably less than 1%. So you got to educate the younger people about this because they're going to be the future taxpayers. He agrees. So we worked up a deal and talked to Dr. Moser, who was president at the time of Rogers University, because this land down there, where this is in Claremore, and there was a college there, the Oklahoma Military Academy, and on the back part of this they had, I think it's 120 acres, but they weren't using it. I mean, their campus is at one end of it. So we got to talking to him, told him what we had in mind, and he made an agreement with us where we could use this land for a conservation education. Well, then we started working with the Oklahoma's Conservation Commission to see if they would help fund us this. So that's when we started working with Mason Mongol and Ben to see if we could get some money to get this thing started. So they gave us some money. We hired a director. His name was Lisa Knopf at the time. And so we got started on this thing. Well, the university was trying to help us on this, and they were trying to get a grant on something else from Texaco. Texaco said, no, we can't help you on that. Said, we're in this conservation program right now. We're trying to do things there. They said, oh, light bulb went off. We got something that I think will work for you. So they came up and talked to this Lisa, and they said, okay, you draw up something and give us an approximate cost. Okay. So she drew up something, and I think it was $47,000. And they said, that looks good, but said, go do some more. So she got busy and did some more, and I think she got it up to $86,000. And they looked at it and said, oh, that looks good, but go do some more. She got it up to $137,000. Said, good, now let's go. So they did, and they did a lot of work, and we built these trails with the county commissioner, who did some asphalt work for us on these trails that goes through. I mean, you really have to see this place to imagine. It's like a jungle. It's full of trees. It's got a pond and some other things. It's a unique place that's right in the middle of Claremore, Oklahoma. That's the astonishing part about it. And deer run on this place. Then we went to a place called the Doctor's Hospital in Tulsa, and they gave us $60,000 to build a 7-foot fence around this place. So we got that done, built a fence. Then we had a senator who at the time was not Speaker of the House, but Senator Pro Tem from Claremore, who got us, I think, Ben, it was $80,000 to build an Aquatics Lab. So we built the Aquatics Lab, and we run kids through there. Used to be just during school's time. They go all year round. And now they're using it a lot for 5K runs through this place. We have this pond that we've done a lot of work. We've got a wetland area that the kids we got rubber boots for like 60 kids, and they can get in these rubber boots, and I mean, they're, plumb up to their waist, and they can play and go out in this swamp area and play and with the little net and pull things out, and then they take it up, and we have these microscopes up there, and they can see the little squigglies in their microscope. So it's really been interesting. It's not all just Rogers County people, students that use this. There's a lot of the surrounding towns. We've had, can't remember the name of it, being this special school that they have during the summer for kids. It's something science, and I can't remember what. There's like 3 different fields that kids apply, and they get like 60 kids, I think it is. There's the real smart kids. And they spend, I think, 3 days up there in this classwork, going through that and watching everything. We have a man that's running the thing for us now. He loves that thing so much that I really think we could quit giving him a salary and he'd keep working. I've never seen anybody like him. He just loves what he does. And but we'll run anywhere from 12 to 16,000 kids through there every year. And occasionally they'll bring bus loads of kids up there from Broken Arrow and Tulsa. I always remember the one question they used to ask, they quit. They'll ask the kids, where's milk come from? You know what the number one answer is?
The freezer section, the cooler section.
Walmart. Number one answer. They have no clue. They've never seen a cow, some of them. So
Well, who funds the person that maintains it?
right now the Oklahoma Conservation Commission is funding. Through the budget cuts, it's one time we had 5 people and we're down to 2 now. So, but we keep working at it, and I think that's probably one of my pets, that I love it, and just see the kids go there. They used to have a gentleman named, he had a name of Billy Bees, which we hired him. He came out of Pennsylvania or Ohio one, and he comes in and he sings folk songs and talks about conservation part. And there's an old amphitheater there, and there'll be 1,200-1,400 kids come to that one day. Mm-hmm. And he puts on quite a show. We're not using him anymore. I think he's about ready to retire. We are working right now, and I have a meeting next Tuesday evening with Keith Austin, who is a council member of the Cherokee tribe. So we're going to work on a joint venture next spring where we're going to have hopefully some Indians come in and do some different things. We'll break them up. In fact, I think they're talking about even furnishing a sack lunch for all these kids. But even breaking up, and we'll have 4 different places where kids will start here and they'll go to the next one, but they'll be rotating around where you won't have all 1,200-1,400 kids at one time. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it was Lawton. I mean, Ben's very familiar with the Oklahoma Land and Judging Contest. And I think we've had their judging team come up from Lawton and spend 2 or 3 days up here just going through things. So it's been very well. The people of Claremore are really getting into it, and a lot of adults are out there walking these trails every day because it's you get away from, you don't realize you're right in the middle of Claremore. And the golf course is right next door, and they can see the deer and all kind of things out there. One of the funny things, I talked Arnold into planting a little area of soybeans, just see what it looked like. We could show kids what it looks like on a little plot. It was probably 3 or 4 acres. they came back after one weekend and went down there, and there wasn't any soybeans. The deer just, they clean it off right to the ground. But they sure did enjoy it. But at one time, I think there was 30 some odd deer on this place. So it's really interesting. And like I say, that's been one of my pet things. And I've spent a lot of time and a lot of hours trying to get money and stuff like this. And so it's been worth it. I've got several different awards over the years. I think it was, I can't even read it, but I was Director of the Year at the Tulsa State Fair. I don't remember what year that was. And then I was put into the Hall of Fame. I think it was in, I'm sorry, I can't see that. 2003. I was elected vice president, I think it was in 93, and they had 3 vice presidents, and I served 6 years of that position. And in 79, I was elected president of the Oklahoma Association of Conservation District, which I did that for 2 years. And one of the things that, and I'm not going to take credit for all of it by any means, but one thing that I kind of pushed was to get a leadership class, because we needed to have these people ready to be vice presidents and stuff. And got the right man to really put this all together, and he's sitting right there. And fortunately, we had the funding to do this for 4 years, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. And up until the current president, somebody has gone through that leadership class who's president right now in the past since 99. Mm-hmm. And last year, no, it's the year before last, I asked the current president, I said, we're not having any of these leadership classes anymore. So anyway, I said, if I could help raise some funds, do you think we could do it again? Well, yeah. So anyway, first thing I did was talk to Ben. I said, if I could raise the funds, would you be interested in help working this thing? He said, sure. I said, how much am I going to need? He said, $25,000, $30,000. Okay. That's going to be fun. So anyway, I got a hold of the state conservationist and asked him if they could help on this. And they said, yeah, we'll help $10,000 on it. So I talked to some of the guys that was on the mining commission, because, I mean, we got some pretty top guys on there. One of them's president of Sherwood Construction Company, which is a large construction company. They did the 6-laning. The other one's a Sandstone. Another one is vice president of U.S. Lime. Another one is President Delesi, which is a big mining operation. So anyway, through them, I was able to get $7,500. So our conservation district, Rogers County, said, okay, we'll help you out. We'll give you $500. And I had a few others give me $500. And I was getting kind of nervous. I was up to 19.5. So I was working with this Keith Austin, who's Cherokee council member. He said, I'll see if I can help you. He said, maybe I can get you $5,000. I said, okay. So I was in the hospital. Wilma was having hip surgery, and I was in there with her, and I get this text message. He said, I hope it'll help you, but said, I can get you 10,000. I said, okay. So that got me up to 29.5. And a gentleman here in town stepped in the office one day and we were talking. He said, what's going on? I was telling him. He said, you just need 500. And I said, yeah. He said, I'll be back in just a minute. So he brought me $500. So anyway, we made the $30,000. And I don't know whether it'll continue on after this or not, but I'm not sure I want to do it again. But I don't know. But I am convinced that that has to be one of the best programs that we have. And I think Ben would agree with me. Because we've had some good presidents. Well, Scotty that you just visited, he went through that class. And I think the relationship goes more than just being on the OECD leadership. I think it goes back to their own districts and makes better districts out of all of them. So I think it was very well worth the program. I was always glad to be a part of it. And truthfully, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was to get the $30,000, but that seemed like an awful big figure at the time. So it's been worth it. And probably one of the nicest awards I've got is the one over here in the very wall from the Office of Surface Mining, which was signed by Kathy Carpin at the time. It's a partnership award pertaining to abandoned mine land program work. And I thought, man, it was really nice. And she was the director of the Office of Surface Mining in Washington, D.C. So I felt kind of privileged with that. And I've got some others in here that I've received from the coalition. So, and then I got the gavel from the 2 years and the president of the conservation district. But I truly enjoy doing what I do, and I hope it makes some reflection on conservation. And of course, Ben knows about it, but I have a little pet project myself of pecan trees, and that keeps me a little busy. I've got a little over 400 pecan trees that I've planted over the years. And
how did you get involved with pecan trees, George? I don't know if I know the history of that.
Well, my dad had 10 acres out here on Prior Creek, right at the edge of town. That I won't go into the story. He just got it, and it was just growing up shrubs and everything else, pretty bad. And I don't even remember exactly how, but I got talking about pecan trees. And he said, if you want to plant pecan trees, he said, I'll just give you the land. So I got it cleared off. In the meantime, the month before Wilma and I got married, which we just celebrated 50 years, last October, be 51 here before long. I bought 80 acres that was very reasonable. And anyway, the year after we got married, I decided to, no, it was a little longer than that. But sometime we decided we planted 390 pecan trees out there in 2 weekends, and I could never do that again. It was I think about killed both of us, because we were up at 3:00 on Saturday morning, drove to Stillwater and picked the trees up and came back and planted until it was dark, and got up next morning and planted until we got finished. And then the next weekend we went back to Stillwater again. And this was during tax season, which at that time we were doing income tax work as well as insurance. So I'm just glad that I was young enough that I could get through it. So, but it was, it's been enjoyable. I've enjoyed all of it.
Are
I
they
know.
paper shells or native?
They're all paper shell.
Paper shell.
So
You're going to have a good crop this year.
there's maybe, I don't know yet because I missed 3 sprayings because it had about 4 feet of water on the whole pecan patch.
Oh, man.
It was bad. One of the first time it had been flooded that bad in a long time. In fact, it was so bad that it washed all the gravel underneath the railroads out here to where it was this deep from the rails to the ground.
Wow.
And they were hauling gravel in here 24 hours a day trying to get it rebuilt. So it was as bad as I had seen in a long time.
Well, speaking of floods, did this county experience any negative things from the 2007 flood that Scotty was telling us about earlier?
The big one on the verdigris.
No, it wasn't that bad here.
From the oil refinery spill too.
Right. That was out here on Oologah Lake, which is not about 8 or 9 miles out here. But as far as Prior Creek, no.
Yeah.
That was bad. But, this whole summer was bad. It was rain.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of land lost, a lot of houses lost, and everything else during all this. So it's been interesting. But
does the district do anything to help with recovery or that aspect of it?
there's some, I think it is, and I'm not sure about all of it. On help building fences and things like this because they were just washed down. I mean, my pecan orchard's got about this much sand on it. I don't know what to do with it yet. Yeah. And truck tire, car tires, shingles, driftwood like you wouldn't believe. I'm still cleaning up.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of flood control, you said your father was involved in the upstream flood control program on Prior Creek.
Mm-hmm.
So how many dams does the district here
We got 6.
maintain? 6.
Yep.
Uh-huh. Is that all on Prior Creek?
Yes. And surprisingly, there was none of them that actually went over the dam.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them got awful close to going over the dam. I mean, it was going as hard as it could over the spillway.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I'm convinced that those things are a big help because I haven't had near the flooding that I've had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
After they really got them in. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Has the district had interactions with any of the tribes?
Oh, yeah. I say I have because I worked with, there was she was in charge of their natural conservation, Sarah Hill.
Oh, with the Cherokee Nation?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she's no longer with that part. She's now an attorney with them. So through Wilma's Indian blood, I've been able to make some pretty good contacts down there. And I've told them anyway I could help them. They're trying to work something out so they can have their own conservation program.
Mm-hmm.
And since Sarah's no longer involved in it, I'm not sure who is, but through, again, Wilma's blood, we're real close with Keith Austin who just got reelected on there. And of course, I was pretty close with Chuck Hoskins, who his son is now the chief of the Cherokees. So Chuck was our representative here for several years. And that's always been interesting between the conservation or OACD and my mining. I spent 2 days at the Capitol just wearing 2 different hats down there, and it was interesting learning the people and got acquainted with a lot of people down there in the legislature. And
For your county, it seems like a good overlap, though, from mine reclamation, conservation, and then the mining.
I think it's worked out real good. I really do. I wish I could remember Buddy Cranford.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was on the mining commission at one
I
time.
believe that's right.
And then there was another man, I can't remember. I think he was down in, not Grady County. He was also on the mining commission. I think he's passed away since then. But they just, I think it was actually Mike Thralls that asked if I would entertain filling that position,
Mm-hmm.
which I did, and glad to do it. And I don't know it will ever happen, but I wonder sometimes why didn't the Mining Commission actually have the AML program? But
I wondered that.
I
too.
can give that history, but that will be in my oral history.
okay, okay.
I will provide that information.
Okay.
A political answer, huh?
It is.
Oh, okay. That was probably something that Leonard had something to do with.
That is correct.
Okay, that figures. Leonard was a
Leonard Solomon, past executive director of the Conservation Commission. Yeah.
So you had interactions with him.
oh yes.
Any stories you want to share?
No, not really. It was always amazing. That guy, he never forgets a name, seemed like. And my dad was not a person that went to all the state meetings and stuff like that. He just was active in Rogers County, even though he was chairman for I don't know how many years. But Leonard always asked me when he saw me, he says, "How's your dad doing?" And it always impressed me. And he became chairman of the mining commission. Was put on there, and they put him as chairman his first year, and he stayed chairman all 7 years he was on the mining commission. So this guy he would really been good as either pro temp or speaker of the house. He was that good.
Yep.
He had a way with people, and he knew how to get things done. That was what was so impressive about him. And he could have you doing things and you didn't even realize what you're doing. I'm sure Ben would know that because
That is
he
correct.
worked under him. But and Mason was kind of close right behind him, really. Mason was very good at what he did. So, but if I'd changed anything, I don't know what it'd be. Enjoyed every bit of it.
Well, what are some of the current projects going on in the county? Anything in particular?
Not really. We're still, we pushed that conservation education program to about as high as it's going to go. We've actually, one of the county commissioners, I've known him since he was born, and 2 years ago from some fund, it's kind of complicated, but he got us $10,000 just to help out. He gave us a lawnmower, a used one, but it was a whole lot better than what we had, which he's allowed to do. And they awarded us another $10,000 here about 6 months ago. We still haven't got it yet, but I'm sure we will. So it kind of helps out when our budget's been kind of slashed back and limited what we can do, because we're going to do everything we can to keep that reserve going just as strong as it can. I don't care if we have to borrow money, but we're going to do it because it's too good. And I don't know, can't remember his Rice, president of National Association of Conservation Districts. Rudy Rice, yes.
Past president, yeah.
He was down here for a South Central meeting, which was at the Cherokee Casino in Catoosa. And I got him to come up here with me to the Conservation Reserve. And he told me, he said, "This is the best kept secret I've ever seen in my life." And he's been around for a lot of places. So he was very, very impressed with it. So.
And how long has it been going? For about 30, is it 30?
I'd say it's probably around 83, 84, 85, somewhere around there.
Sometime in the mid to late 80s, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's been operational for almost 30 years.
Yeah, during the Bellman era, one of the Bellman terms.
That I don't remember who,
Right in there, sometime in there.
but
That's pretty good, 30, 31
yeah, and it just, you know, a lot of times you get things like that and it kind of starts going downhill. We're not going downhill, we're still going up. In fact, they've just got a grant from the Wildlife Department, and we've got some milkweed and some other growing out there to get the monarchs coming in.
Yeah, good.
So we look for everything that there is, and have a really excellent board. And I think, I'm not sure about this, but this may be the only county that's had 2 past presidents from one county. And I think there's a possibility with Lyle Blakely that we may see another one. This boy's, he's good. So, but I don't remember any president there's been a 2 presidents from one county yet. So, but Joe Parker was president, did a good job, and like I say, I think Lyle will.
So George, you've been on the board here for over 40 years. What can you share about how things have changed in the operation of the district and relationships with SCS, now the NRCS? What have been the big changes in your career on the board?
Probably the most change is the funding, which is mainly from the state. Federal, yeah, we're seeing there's a lot of difference in the federal. What the answer to that is, I don't really know. It's rather complex. I've always felt in all of the things that I've dealt with is that Oklahoma is probably one of the top 5 states in the United States for conservation. They're recognized in so many things. And I don't know how long you've been in Oklahoma, but there's the diversification in Oklahoma is unbelievable. You can go from the mountains to the flats and just to see what's happened from the Dust Bowl days, which I like to watch that thing. It kind of shakes you up a little bit, but it's a part of history that has turned us into a better state, is all I can say. And it was a tragic situation, but it made a better state out of us, as far as I'm concerned. You know, what they were doing then had to stop. It was all there is to it. And through conservation and the leaders that, even some from Oklahoma, that Hugh Bennett saw all this, and it was had enough sense to get this thing changed. We see a different state today, and I think it will do nothing but get better and better. To me, one of the hardest things we have to do, and it bothers me as I drive through the countryside, and I'm not picking on any particular one animal, but when I see somebody that's got 5 or 10 acres out here with way too many horses on it, and there's nothing, hardly all you can see is dirt. And if they only realize what they're doing to Mother Earth, and I think this Mother Earth program that we got going right now, Ben, is something that should have happened 15 or 20 years ago. We're learning more about what's down below than what there is up above. And I think it'll make a difference once this thing is actually looked at more. Of course, I don't do any kind of crop farming myself at all, but a lot of the things going on there, it's difficult to get some of the old timers to realize that no-till is the way to go. Yeah. And, we're tilling up some of the things in Mother Earth that doesn't need to be tilled up. From what I'm seeing of this. So there's a lot of things to learn, and the federal government needs to recognize that and realize water is probably our most precious commodity that we have. Now, when I say water, I'm talking about potable water that you can actually drink. So, it's like I went to a meeting with Ron Clark, who was a state conservationist at that time, in Dallas. And I'll never forget the statement that there was a Corps of engineer there, and his report was saying if it was not for all the watersheds in Oklahoma, which we got 2,100 of them, Lake Texoma would be a dry lake. And you think about that. That would be very possible, because we got at least one watershed that I know of is a dry lake. And what do you do with it? I don't know. Hopefully they'll figure it out someday, because you can't just dig that out because that's contaminated soil. It's been underwater. So there's still a lot yet to learn, and I hope that our people in D.C. recognize that food is very important. I know they're talking about, we'll grow things in the ocean. Maybe not. Seem like we get started on something and they find something wrong. So it's very important that we have agriculture to grow the food that we need to eat. So that's basically where I still come from in this. And we need to get better at it. And like I say, this healthy soil, I think, is one of the programs that is going to be very good. But one of the things we need, at least in my area here, is these people that come up here and buy 5 or 10 acres, 20 acres, and just kind of, in one sense, destroy it. There's some that takes care of it and do a good job. But there's some that, in my estimation, they abuse it, and they have to have a horse or some cows or something like that, and they overgraze it, and that's about as worst thing as they can do. Because eventually, it's just like, it bothers me to see people make 2 cuttings of hay. Now, they think it's something they have to have, but is it still going to be there 5 years from now? I don't know that answer. Because sometimes they work too hard on the grounds that they have to try to make money out of it. And it just doesn't always work out well.
What's the main product in Rogers County? What's
It's mostly cattle.
cattle?
Yeah. There is some crop around here, but not very much. Be some down on the Vertigus area. Surprisingly, there's getting to be quite a bit of pecans. I don't know whether Mike Spradley, do you know him? You ever seen his place?
I have not.
Oh my goodness, Ben. If you get on the Will Rogers Turnpike, if you say you're going from Veneta down there or even Claremore, before you cross the Arkansas River, you'll see thousands of pecan trees.
Mm-hmm.
That's Mike Spradley.
Okay.
He bought the old OSU experimental station that you see there on Route 66 and has planted numerous pecan trees on this. And Justin Miller.
Mm-hmm. Up in Ottawa County.
Yes. He has planted 600 pecan trees for the last 3 years. So he's getting into this, and he has one of the best cleaning places I've ever seen. I don't know whether you've ever been in it or not, but it's unbelievable. I took about 800 pounds up there 3 years ago, and the halves were almost 90%. Very few pieces. So it's quite an operation. Very clean, very modern. So, but probably cattle is the biggest one. People, they can buy 80 acres up here for about the same price as a nice lot in Tulsa cost. So they come up here and they put some cattle in, think they're going to pay for that land and everything out of that, which I think they get discouraged after a few years, but they're always looking at the tax write-off. So, but I don't know. That's about all I can tell you right now.
Well, on the district board, has most people stay on it 20, 30 years?
No. I've seen a lot of different board members over the years.
Any females?
We do have a female right now. We had a lady on there for several years, and she got off and she passed away about a year ago. But we got one right now that she's really sharp. And she and her husband run a lot of cattle, and she's going to be good. But this is a real good board that I've got right now. I'm really pleased with them. So,
how much longer do you think you'll stay on it? Have you thought that far ahead? 5 more years, 10 more years? Year by year?
Year by year.
Year by year.
Yep. At my age, you can't guarantee anything.
No.
But, I feel like I'm still in very good health and soon be 78. So still working every day, which I enjoy doing. But I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably like to go another 5 years anyway.
Yeah, for both, for the mining board as well as the conservation district board.
Well, if I get reappointed on the mining board, I'll be 85 when I get off.
Another 7.
Wow.
Because they're 7-year terms. So who knows?
It gives you end gold to think about.
But there's just some awful good people on the mining commission. I enjoy working with them and everything. executive director on there. She is very good.
Do
So
you go out and visit sites?
we do once a year. We'll take this last June. We toured the Delesi Mine. I can't remember the name of it. It's right north of Lawton, Oklahoma. And they've been mining that particular place since 1886.
Wow.
Fascinating. And there's at least 160 to 80 carload of gravel go out of there every day.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Train load.
What are they mining? So it's
Two-
gravel.
200 and between 250 and 350 semis go out of there every day.
And it will leave pits for water
Well,
down the road.
it started out as a mountain.
Oh, okay.
Now it's
So it'll eventually
about down to the
flatten-
pit.
flatten it out.
So, but they figure they have another 30 years.
Wow.
But it's quite an operation. We got a real nice tour of it, and it was amazing. I had no idea that a lot of their rock goes to Texas, and so
So we
It's-
have gypsum. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
And then gravel, and then coal. Still doing any coal?
Yes.
Coal mining.
yes,
And what about the zinc and lead that was over in Pitcher? Any of that?
I think that's about all gone.
Okay, so it's primarily those three.
Well, of course, there's sand out of the rivers, and then I've got a customer in Texas that's mining sand, and it's not on a river. They got 6 feet of overburden, and then they got anywhere from 12 to 16 feet of sand, and they run southeast of Dallas, and they run anywhere from 150 to 175 semi-loads every day.
Wow.
Sand going into Dallas.
I was just curious if current mining companies have to have something in place to, once it's extracted, do they have to repair the damage they've done to get it out after a certain point, or?
Okay, there's a limestone mining operation in kind of northeast Tulsa part, not too far from the airport. They've been mining in there for 40, 50 years. And now they're using it for refill on land fill. And the surprising that I didn't know, they actually, I can't think what's the name of the gas that all this trash puts off. Methane. They're actually pumping the methane gas to a cement plant about a mile away to help operate the cement plant. So I'm thinking, good, they're using it for something.
Yeah.
So they don't have a big explosion someday. I don't know whether it would or not. But it's just amazing what they do with what they've been mining. And I don't know whether you've heard of it, Ben, but they are now mining fracking sand at the west part of Oklahoma now. It's been coming out of Minnesota for a number of years, but they're actually mining fracking sand, which they frack these oil wells. And because I know one of the guys on the mining commission owns a railroad company down in Wilbur's, and they rent sidetrack for mining sand or blasting or fracking sand coming out of Minnesota. but it's just like going through that Jimson plant where they were making sheetrock. This building was well over a mile long. And it starts rolling out a piece of paper, sliding in between it. It goes all through this building and back around over here through an oven and everything. And it's ready to send out 100 truckloads of sheetrock every day going out of that plant, plus some train loads. So, but there's a lot more to mining than what people understand about.
And you've had to learn about it as you went along?
I did. We've been to a mine over in, I think they call it Crystal City, in the eastern part of the state, where they've been mining in this hill, limestone. And it's a particular kind of limestone that they use for water treatment. And they've been digging that stuff out of this thing, and we actually got to go inside of it. On a hot day, it was nice in there. But then we've been to a couple of coal mining sites. So we've seen some different things over the years. It's amazing, this guy, the sandstone, I mean, he takes a rock in there as big as this room, and he's got this bandsaw. It's got all these, looks like ropes, and about ever so far there's a little sack full of diamonds, and it goes like this, and it cuts 32 cuts at a time. And it goes pretty quick. So it's been very educational to find out what goes on in the state of Oklahoma. So.
Anything else? Anything else you want to add that we don't know to ask about? Any mentors or anyone that has shaped your career, other than your father, since he got you started on the insurance, but anyone else had any impact on the path you've taken?
Well, I guess Wilma has got a little impact on me, the fact that I got a little more respect for the Indians, even though my great-great-great-great-grandfather was killing them. But
there you go.
And I'm particularly more towards the Cherokees, because they don't seem to be out looking for help or something. They're making their own way. And I know the casinos, which I don't like casinos, but we've got them, we got to live with them. That's all there is to it. But their aim is to be, in the next 2 or 3 years, where their income, the casino money, will be less than 40%. So they have their own industries that they're making money with. And I think it's so great that they're putting in a mid-school down in Tahlequah, because the rural areas need medical help bad. And I think that's going to be the thing. You go through medical school there, then you've got to give them like 5 years or something. And they'll be put out in the rural areas where we need those kind of things. Now, Matt is on the fire department here. We don't have an ambulance service here. We have a clinic, but there's no doctor there. And they'll make, I think last year they made 460 some odd calls, and probably 80% of them are medical calls. And they just go out and assist until the ambulance can get up here from Claremore, which is 18 miles away. So hopefully we can see some doctors in the rural areas. I don't know, it was on the news the other night where the hospital in Haskell is being shut down because they don't have the money. And Oilton, I think, was about ready to have one shut down. So the little rural towns are, you know, we're not really bad because we've got decent hospital north of here in Veneta. We got a decent hospital in Claremore, not that far away from Tulsa. But some of the places are like 80, 90 miles an hour, 90 miles from one place. So
What's Chelsea's main source of economic?
working in Claremore and Tulsa,
Okay, so it's a bedroom community, huh?
basically.
In a sense. But it's home.
It's home. It's home. I enjoy it. And, you know, I'm on several boards here in town and trying to make things work. And so, but we're getting there. It may be slow, but.
Well, then I'll end with my last question. How do you want history to remember George Fraley?
He was here.
Gotta do better than that. A little bit better than that.
I just hope that I feel that through the conservation district, through living in Chelsea and the things I'm involved in, that we'll be a better community, county, or even state, that I help do some of this. And time will tell. And that's all I can really say.
Okay, that's good though. So thank you for sharing. It's been great.
Thank
You're
you,
more than
George.
welcome. Thank you all.